we're the Unimind. We are the Unimind.
Full
One
spoilers.
big brain.
I was expecting your head to make it so your head is like in the way of the Celestial, so you are the Celestial.
I'll do my best.
All right. Pay no attention to Aerasham. The first villain in Guardians of the Galaxy level in Lego Marvel too. But full spoilers for Eternals, the latest film in the MCU. You know the drill by now. If you haven't seen it, don't spoil it for yourself. Skip on over. Do whatever you want. Been warned. Full spoilers for Eternals. What we think about this one?
Grayson, you seen it yet? Okay, he's probably gone. Anyways, can
you just imagine if he was just like, "No, Ben, I haven't."
He texts me. He's like, "I'm still here." I'm like, yeah, Eternals was all right. I mean, it's not the best. It's definitely not the best. It's not the worst, but I have unlike Black Widow, where if Black Widow was on, I would watch it and I could get some entertainment out of it. Whereas if Eternals was on, I'm like, can we maybe change it to something better, something else? I don't know.
Why don't we go down? Oh, Jesus, he's there. Grayson is in the chat. Not yet.
Spoilers.
But Ben,
you put me in charge of the chat. Remember,
Grayson, you got to mute for like an hour.
clearly, I don't remember Ben. Anyway, he says he's still gonna see it. I'll mute for a bit. All right. Okay, Ryan.
Man, guys. I think there are a lot of really, really, really cool stuff. I think there's a lot of cool stuff in this movie, sprinkled throughout the whole movie. But overall, I find it to be kind of a dud, and it makes me sad because I think for a lot of reasons this movie is really important, and it bums me out that I find it mostly a drag. Definitely one of my least favorite MCU movies, and I hate saying it. Yeah, Celestials are cool, man. I guess, yeah.
Sparks?
Can you please go before me?
Okay. I don't think I like this one very much.
I'm being more positive, if I'm being honest.
I do have positives, but the more I kind of sit on it, the more I kind of think about it, the more I was trying to do kind of my ranking, and to be fair, my Letterboxd ranking of the MCU is just kind of a hodgepodge mess. It's just not really accurate, but I do keep Iron Man 2 at the bottom, and I kept kind of like looking at Eternals, like, okay, maybe no, I don't. Before I knew it, it was seconds from the bottom. I don't know if that's kind of where I sit on it, but I didn't come away from this one very hot.
Mm-hmm. What's up, Sparks?
I kind of liked it.
Great.
I liked it much more than most people, apparently.
Yeah, that's good.
I think it's flawed, for sure. I think it has issues, but a lot of it resonated for me, and I enjoyed it.
Good.
I enjoyed it.
Are you sure?
It's just been so hard because like I saw it on Thursday and like we'd been talking about the buzz going into it and like people, not being very hot on it, and I'm like, oh man, how much, how bad is this? And I go in and I'm like, it's long, it's got issues. I don't think it's the trash can fire people are saying. Is
I don't either.
But I come out of it and I'm like, a lot of that worked for me. Am I wrong? And I had to really think about it, and I had to listen to things, and I had to like read things, and I've been waiting for this anxiously for 4 days because I'm like, I don't know why am I different?
That's fair. I also just don't think it is as bad as people are claiming it to be on the internet.
The thing is, like, again, Rotten Tomatoes, if you give it like a fine score, if everyone gives it a fine score, then it's a failure. You know what I mean? So like, it's not always the basis, but like,
I'm not just talking about Rotten Tomatoes, but
the
general discourse around it has been.
The difference between this and like a really bad movie is this movie's not bad. I just find a lot of it uninteresting.
Yeah.
It's far too long. Again, it's kind of the same problem I have with the new James Bond movie. It's far too long, but it doesn't do enough with any of the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like my problem is there are far too many characters, and all the characters are good, but there's too many of them to really give any of them enough for me to care about really any of them. I think they're all good, but like it's hard for me to have a real true connection when like Guardians of the Galaxy has 5 characters, and that's a tough thing to deal with 5 characters. This is 10 characters plus side characters. Mm-hmm. I just think it was it was way too much real estate and not enough land to do it.
Yeah, we talked about it. I also find this one dull. Like Thor 2, I can at least have a good time watching. This one is just kind of bland and dull, and I just kind of sit there thinking to myself, like, this is shorter than Endgame. Don't believe you.
It's
No, like we kept talking about how long this movie is, and is this movie just about as long as Infinity War?
probably 2:30 is long. Yeah.
It's about as long as Dune, honestly.
Yeah, but like we talk about Dune and we talk or how long Dune was, but Dune, that's a long ass movie. I was engaged and I cared the whole time. Avengers: Infinity War and even Endgame, which is half an hour longer than this one, I care. I was on the edge of my seat. I'm like, yes, I can't wait. But there were parts during Eternals where I was like, can we just hurry it up, please?
There are a lot of really cool things in this movie, and I see, and the thing that I'm rubbing up against is just like I think some of the choices for the story just really don't serve the story whatsoever, and I think it's especially with Eternals. I think it's a weird choice to kill certain characters the way that they do. I think I don't think it adds to the story in the way they think it does. I think the villain, especially the deviant stuff, is so wasted, and I'm so disappointed with. There's a moment in the movie where Crow evolves and he's like, you guys are murderers and we're not the bad guys, and I'm like, yes, they're gonna do something here. Then he leaves for an hour and he comes back and dies.
Yeah.
And at the end when that guy shows back up, and you and I both had the moment like, oh right,
we both looked at each other. I'm like, oh right, where have you been?
I heard.
And then Angelina Jolie goes into the cave, and I literally looked like, we have time for this?
I forgot until somebody brought it up online that Kingo is just absent for like most of the third act.
Oh yeah.
And it's because if you remember, he says, "Oh, I like the Celestials, but like a religious person, I don't want to like fight with my friends, so I'm gonna stay out of it." But they don't make it a point that like he's not gonna go and fight the end battle with them. He just disappears for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, because he shows up at the epilogue, and he's just there. It's like, man, I completely forgot. Holy crap!
And crazy enough, and I'll let Spark say something after this, but like the thing that initially that I didn't like was the final end battle with Icarus, because I'm like, it's just them fighting their friends. But then the more I thought about it, that is my favorite part of the movie, because it's like when I feel the most tense, and it's like friends actually fighting each other, and the fight sequence is actually really good. It's the most they use their powers, and like the thing that I like most about the movie, it's none of that stuff. It's just like a cool fight scene that I saw in a Justice League already. You know what I mean? Like I literally watched this fight in Justice League already, and I'm like.
I really enjoyed. I want to say a positive because I really enjoy how this movie looks. I really like the visualization of the Eternals' powers. I think is really cool and interesting. That fight scene with Icarus is really cool for me because I'm seeing all the different powers being used, and I really like how they're all visualized. Especially Brian Tyree Henry just going all out with his stuff. That was really cool.
Yeah, Makari like. The thing I love about the way that speed is done in this movie, it's never slow-mo. She's always going 1,000 miles an hour, and like this is like one of the closest like Dragon Ball Z fights we'll have, right? Where she's like punching him into the wall at like all different angles. It's like that's some really cool shit. Like the action for the most part of this movie really works. I think the fight in the forest with the deviants when they go to Druig's compound, that's way too dark. I don't think that looks very good at all.
No, I had an issue saying because great job trying, shooting with natural lighting. I really like the look of it. There's definitely a moment where after they leave Druig's camp, it goes to a really bright light, and I'm like, oh dang.
I don't think I appreciate that this is a unique look for the MCU. I don't think it works the entire time.
No, and specifically because the way that scene is lit, the deviants are also lit naturally, but their color scheme blends in with the natural lighting, so you lose them. And I don't think it's the filmmaker's intention that you lose where the deviants are in the fight.
Yeah.
That was like the only time where I was struggling to at least see what was going on. And I desperately want to hear what Sparks has to say.
No, it's fine. I mean, like, go off, it's cool. Man, like, I agree with pretty much all of the criticism, almost entirely. I just still liked all of it. Not all of it. I still liked a lot of it. I was fully prepared to like go in and like I know Ryan read this because I know Ryan, and like I was prepared for like, oh, it's not just people who like don't like diversity that aren't liking Eternals, because Gita Jackson put out a great piece over on Vice about like not liking like having criticism against the movie is not the same as like hating diversity.
Movies can be diverse and bad at the same time.
Yes, exactly. It doesn't mean that, like you don't have to like the movie just because it's doing a lot of great diversity things, which it is. But you don't have to like the movie just because of that. You can still be critical of it.
Yeah.
And so I did try to like bring my critical eye. And I see the flaws. I don't know. I think that like I agree. I think the visual language of the film overall is really spectacular. I liked that it doesn't feel like a MCU movie most of the time.
No,
Yeah.
I do too. Yeah.
I really like that. And I guess like more than anything, my biggest takeaway is that I'm just glad that we're here where we're finally taking like big enough swings. I'd rather the swing be big and miss, I guess.
No,
at that
100%.
point.
That's why like I am mostly negative on this movie. But it is not the same negativity that I had for something for like Venom or Harry Potter, right? It is
Right.
I just find it kind of boring, not bad. It's just uninteresting to me.
I think I'd rather come out of this with everyone feeling the way that they are about it, and it be this kind of like divisive, but it went for things the way it did, than the Eternals introduction feel about the same as Black Widow.
Yeah.
And I think that would have disappointed me more.
Yeah,
to just kind of feel like it was, there it is. The Eternals.
I am 100% like you guys. Like we are all here for big swings. I agree. I would much rather watch a big swing and a miss than not even taking a chance. It just for me, I felt that it was just overstuffed. There's simply too much for you to connect with all of it.
100%, I agree, and I think that like for me, I just really it felt so much like really what Chloe Zhao wanted was almost, and I almost wish this was the whole movie, pretty much except for the end. Just like a indie character piece analyzing their relationships.
Yeah.
And like you just can't do that. Like no matter how hard you push, like a blockbuster MCU movie is never going to be that.
Yeah.
But it feels like that's what it wanted to be. And like there's a lot of moments where I'm vibing that and I'm enjoying it and I'm liking it. And I do think that like a lot of the character relationships work. I think Gemma Chan is really good, and I think she glues the movie together pretty well. Her and Richard Madden, who and I think all the actors are really good, and for the most part, I think all of them are giving like top-notch performances, and trying to create nuance and subtext wherever they can. And I think most of the time it's working. I agree, though. I agree. Like it's overstuffed, like 100%. And I'll get this one. Like I have criticisms, and my biggest one. The biggest problem with the movie is that there's too many Eternals. That's 100% true. And I think that the simplest thing is like there should have been one or two less, because we could always do something else with more Eternals later.
Real quick, Sparks, considering the end of the movie is them going to go find more Eternals, they could have cut this cast in half and just save them for later.
I would have, God, but I like everybody. Like I like all the actors, so I like all the characters too.
Yeah.
But I would say that Druig and Festus's emotional arc things in relation to humanity are pretty similar, and I would have just made that one person.
Yeah.
Personally, I would have picked Festus. I think it's more important to have Brian Tyree Henry in the movie. And it really does feel like at a certain point Druig is just there because Druig is a red herring for who your bad guy is going to be.
Yeah.
And that's a bummer because even going into it, like because of the actor Ryan's, like because it's Barry Kogan playing Druig, you are already going, oh, he's gonna be the bad guy.
Fun fact,
and like
real quick, after Dune Part 2 was announced, he did a winky face to it, so he might be Fade Ralpha, which is perfect casting.
It's perfect casting. It wouldn't surprise me. And so like you are being led to believe that he's going to be a problem because of how he views what his powers are. The comics themselves, yes, exactly. Like his powers lend themselves to being I'm a bad person. And so it feels like he's kind of there to be the red herring. And I'm like, really, what his thing is about is like not interfering with humans and watching humanity rip itself apart and how he feels about that. And I'm like, that could have still been wrapped up in Fastus's thing the same way. And like how he felt about advancements in technology getting out of hand. And like you could have done both of those and eliminated Druig and eliminated that whole section to focus on other characters. And then after that, I would probably get rid of Sprite.
I would get rid of Dane Whitman.
Yeah.
I don't think you need to get rid of Dane. I don't think he hurts the film at all.
But he
personally.
doesn't literally add anything at all either. I
Right.
like
I-
him, but like it doesn't.
He's
you know.
he's the girlfriend. Like, why is that I don't think that's a problem in this movie. I don't
It's,
think
oh,
that
I don't
Dane-
think it's a problem. I just like if I could have got 10 minutes with other characters instead of just a bookend with him, I think I would have rather had that.
I don't totally agree because I think he is an important representation of Gemma Chan's whole thing.
Okay.
And like because she fell in love with him and he is a representation of her connection to humanity. And I really like what he does in grounding the film at the beginning. Because I like that it doesn't feel like a general origin film. I like that I kind of feel tossed into the waters of it after we get the prologue.
Yeah.
I love that it's just, oh, weird thing happens, but we live in a world where Endgame has happened, and so Dane's just like, oh shit, what's that? And he's like asking her questions like, are you a wizard or something? And he can get with it a lot faster.
Okay,
And
I think I know what the problem is because I like all that stuff. I think it's the end where he's like, I have a secret history I didn't tell you about. I think because he has such little screen time that half of it is devoted to saying, oh, I'm a setup for the MCU. That's my problem.
Anytime an MCU tease up happened, and I agree with that 100% because I wish this film had ended with things just being cool.
Yeah.
I didn't need Arishem coming and pulling them into space or any of the setup for. I liked this feeling self-contained, and we could open that bottle again at another point in time.
Yeah.
But I liked the vibe post-credit scenes disregarding. Like I liked the vibe of the film feeling kind of like it stood apart in a way. So I agree with you on that. But him himself as a character and him being kind of a foundational lightning rod for her humanity representation and her care for it worked for me.
All right, I like that. I'll buy that.
I'm glad he was there as that, and I appreciated it.
You're gonna say Sprite.
I was gonna say Sprite, and so the reason why Sprite is like I think if you did get rid of Druig, you turned it into just his arc stuff combined with Fastus. If you took Sprite with Icarus and Circe to when they go get him, and Sprite sees him with a family, and Sprite's jealousy of that happens there, then I think Sprite's arc is more clear. But without that, Sprite is just not given enough. So there's room where either you had to add that, and you could have if you reduced the Eternal number, and then it would have worked, or you just take Sprite out. And again, like I think the rest of the Eternals were the more important ones to focus on anyway.
Yeah, I also think Sprite. I didn't understand Sprite's arc, especially when twice in the movie they kind of throw an arc at you, like, oh, she loves Icarus. Oh, she wants to be human. And I'm like, okay, wait, what? Where did this come from?
So our book club is a bigger inspiration than I thought it was going to be. I see the stuff with Sprite from that book, and I like the idea so much. It's Brandon. It's the thing from what is it? Black Hammer. There's also the girl who can't age. Yeah, that trope. It's the Kristen Dunst in Interview with the Vampire again, like 9-year-old immortal. That is a awesome trope. Again, they don't explore it enough for me to actually care about that arc. And that is unfortunately the problem I feel with most of these characters. They all have small arcs, but like Fastus doesn't show up until like 2 hours into the movie, guys. Like it's so hard for me. He's so charismatic, and the thing like Kingo is it's Kumail being Kumail. It's Brian Tyree Henry being Brian Tyree. Like those characters aren't real characters to me, but they're fun on screen, right? So I'm okay with that. They're not on screen enough for me to care about the characters that aren't there, so I don't really care. You know what I mean?
When we start killing characters, I don't really feel anything for them, because one of the things that I've noticed, that we have all noticed, we've talked about with the shows have become more like we're following the plot beats because we have to follow the plot beats, and not because the characters we're following the characters. Like they're more plot centric, less character centric.
Yeah.
Which isn't necessarily what the MCU has been up until now. This is the first time where the movie, maybe not the first time, I can't remember too much, but this is definitely another example of like this movie, the plot has to happen, so we're following the plot, and the characters are kind of along for the ride. They're not supposed to be.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be following the characters, but I don't feel anything with these characters. So especially when they die, okay.
I think there's too many. There's also like too many villains, but like Arisham's not really the villain. But like the deviants like aren't really. I just don't know how I feel about this movie, y'all. There's so much happening, and like I want to like so much of it, like all the lore stuff. Like I love that it opens with a text crawl. Super into that. Like all the cosmic stuff I love, and like, but it's just so much of the middle. It's just I feel so unnecessary and does nothing for the characters.
On the deviants, I 100% agree about like. I don't think the deviants should have gained sentience in the movie. Like throwing aside what we know from like the comics or that kind of thing. Like for the MCU, I'm like you went a direction with the deviants, fine. Like have Icarus and them have it be the family struggle be the thing. Like just drop the deviants as sentience. They can be there, but like don't have them gaining sentience because you do nothing with it. Yeah. And I agree that is a problem because I'm like because I got kind of jazzed when it happened at first.
Same. Yeah.
Okay, so. I really hate that they killed Gilgamesh. I hated it.
Me too.
Bro.
That has me so mad.
They're Eternals. They don't die. That's literally their thing.
No, I like, and they can bring him back, but like,
but they're not going to.
Why you doing Don Lee like this, man?
Yeah, that out of all the deaths in this movie, that one pissed me off the most. I'm like, why kill Gilgamesh?
It really bummed me out. Like, I get it for story reasons, but like Ajax being dead the whole movie really bummed me out. I'm gonna be honest, and like maybe just because I watched so much marketing of Salma Hayek being in it, but like I expected her to be so much in this movie, and she's literally dead like 30 minutes in. I'm like, that's kind of stinky. She's like a plot device, stinky dead lady.
That's some bullshit. I want to bring up what Grayson said in the chat. He's asked, when I found out the large cast of Eternals, I was nervous about balancing all the characters. Do you think this would have been better? A better tie-in series so we can connect to the characters more.
So here's the thing. You can't make a TV show out of this size of scope. Like this is a movie. This has to be a movie. Like celestial shit. The budget is too massive. The thing is like they just needed to focus on one thing. This movie is like a 1 cup can full of 3 cups of tuna.
Honestly, you cut out the deviant plot line, the significant deviant plot line. You got a lot of real estate there you can fill in with some character work.
You cut down the Eternals by 1 at least.
Yeah.
But probably just 1. And you cut the sentience deviant plot line. I think this could all have gelled a lot better.
100%. I see a good movie.
I also, because people have like made the comparisons to like, and Chloe Zhao's made the direct inspiration from Zack Snyder's work.
Yeah.
I want the 4-hour cut of the movie, personally.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's where we get everything we needed. And because I feel like Chloe Zhao wanted this to feel like real relationship analysis of these characters, and it wanted to go for that indie vibe. And I can feel the film doing it sometimes.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I rub up against the criticism. I'm only highlighting you, Brandon, because I remember you saying it last, but you pretty much all said it, where like you're not connecting to the characters. And I'm like, I don't think not all of them are well developed enough in the movie. I'll definitely agree with that, but I'm connecting to them. Like I care about them. So I don't, and that's not a criticism on you guys. That's just, I got that. I don't know.
So here's the thing. So like, I understand all the characters. I understand all their motivations. I like Thena's, I like the thing that's happening with Thena. I get what's happening with Thena. Like we just talked about Sprite. I didn't connect with Sprite very much.
Sure.
I didn't connect with Druig very much, but like I like Druig, but I didn't connect with him. But like I actually like that character a lot.
For me, I always come out of an MCU film, and by the end of the MCU film, whatever it is, I've connected with the characters. I've cried or I've laughed or whatever downbeat or whatever beat they ended the movie on. Like Guardians of the Galaxy is a good example. By the end of the Guardians of the Galaxy, I give a shit that Groot dies.
Yeah.
But I'm excited to see them show up in another film. At the end of this one, I'm like, yeah, all right, I'm good.
I'm more excited for Dane Whitman because of another character that shows up, really, more than anything.
I was more excited for that one too, to be perfectly honest.
Right.
Can someone explain to me why Icarus decides to just peace out and just launch himself into the sun? Because I didn't understand it. I didn't get it.
Because he heard the metaphor and he had to make it true.
Well, he killing himself because he tried to kill a celestial.
Shame. He killed Ajax.
Yeah,
Shame.
Okay.
He did it for shame. Yeah.
Right.
Suicide.
I actually really like that part.
I'm not criticizing it.
I'm not saying you are. I'm just expressing.
I want to talk about
Wait. Sorry. Can I clarify
Yes.
real quick? So what I mean is because I heard who you guys named and I agree. Like I didn't connect a bunch to Sprite and Druig. That's why I said like I think you could take Druig out of this movie. I think Sprite would be the next one. But I did connect to Circe. I did connect
Yeah.
to Icarus. I
Mhm.
did connect to Fastus. I did connect to Athena. I did connect to Gilgamesh. I did connect to Kingo. So like those guys all work for me. I'm connected to them. I care about them. I care about what happens to them. I connected to Fastus. I didn't connect to McCurry, and that bummed me out. I literally turned to Megan when we get back to McCurry in the story.
Makari.
Makari, thank you. And like I was like, oh my god, I like forgot she was in this movie.
Yes.
No,
So
that,
did
I.
but
And I
actually
really
that
liked her.
happens with Kingo. Kingo literally disappears for the third act of the movie.
I didn't forget he was there, and I listened to the Ringer verse, and they had an interview with Nyan Johnny about the film, and he said that he thought it was actually a pretty powerful message for him to have that not everybody responds the same way to the situation, and for his character to have been completely loyal to the Celestials and inspired by Icarus, which is evident by him making a movie based on Icarus trilogy, and say I believe in the Celestials, but I absolutely refuse to fight my family. So he's just going to let whatever's going to happen, and if they decide to do it, like they can do it, but he's not going to be a part of it. And I see the point in that, and I think that is valuable. Like having one character who does like it is jarring and kind of weird, and I did miss having him in the third act, but I did think like it was cool to have characters have these different perspectives and different opinions and hold to those beliefs.
No,
And
absolutely.
I think it was better to have him hold to that than to have him like come in at the last moment for the save and he's like, I changed my mind. Bam, bam, bam,
No,
bam,
but
bam.
I didn't want that either. But just like I just think it could have been executed better. Of just like, hey, I don't want to fight my friend, but then he's just gone for 45 minutes. Like he's one of the main characters in the movie. We gotta like at least address it in some way, because then he is just in the epilogue. You know
I will say that I thought I was surprised that we didn't cut away like a la Spirit Bomb kind of thing to see him connect to the Unimind.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that should have happened, but I am
because he was part of the Unimind, right? He had to have been, right?
In theory, right?
Okay, I didn't see it.
Right, and so I do think that that's weird when the Unimind gets to the point where it makes everybody be part of it.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, like I'm kind of glad that they held to that concept.
Mm-hmm.
So the other thing I was going to say earlier was about the sentient deviance thing. I got jazzed about it because I like the moment that he started like talking and everything. I'm like, oh my god, he's Cell. And then of course it kind of amounts to nothing, and that's a bummer. I do think that they just should have nixed that plot line. I don't.
So like
that was any
not to bring in the comics, because like the deviants are like they're just like ugly Eternals. Like if you're gonna do the deviants, I kind of wish they would have done that and do the whole thing of like, oh, we're not the real monsters, because then you'd have like a force to like, oh, like the enemy of my enemy is my friend. But then they literally just like any ounce of nuance, again, they just kill the monster like it's nothing.
If you were gonna do that, you'd have to cut like 4 Eternals that time.
No, and I get it. So
for
like,
sure, yeah. No, I'm with you. I think like that could be interesting. I just
and the thing like Crow,
I don't think that was ever like really going to be on the table for MCU stuff, because this kind of stuff happens in the MCU all the time. And so I'm like, just don't even try. Just leave them as these beasts and let it be.
After reading Neil Gaiman's Eternals and now Kieran Gillen's Eternals, like Crow is a really cool deviant character. Yeah, and he's super stylish and weird.
And that's the thing is like you could have left these ones very beast-like, but we could have opened up a deviant box again at another point in time and done something more developed. But I'm like, this just wasn't the movie to do it. Like, just leave it. You made this beast decision for most of the film. Just leave it there. You got plenty of other landscape to work with.
Yeah.
I wrote a note. We talked a bit about how really the only issue with Dane Whitman is the sequel bait at the end that kind of just doesn't make sense for that, especially in regards
I got a secret family.
But I wrote a note, and I must have been thinking of this on a subconscious level. I say that Black Knight was wasted, and then said Dane Whitman. So I think that's kind of interesting that like even though I was thinking that like Dane Whitman doesn't work. I was always just kind of like thinking like that's really just the Black Knight shit.
Just setting it up.
Yeah, I think I felt like as the love interest of Circe as Dane, I like him in the movie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do
That's
too.
what-
It's just that one line that just like that irked me.
Well, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I want to talk about the Celestials.
They're
Sure.
great, incredible.
I really, much in the same way that I really like how this how this film visualizes their powers. I really like how this film visualizes the Celestials. I think they nail the scale of the Celestials when the one is coming up from the Earth, Unicron. He's coming up from the Earth, and you see him over the horizon. Just to kind of get that scale, as we see the hand in the foreground, is really cool. Aramesh, when he shows up in orbit and you just see the ghostly face of him, very Gurren Lagann, so into that.
Yeah.
And seeing like the birth of the universe was just a really cool visual. We've seen it in the trailers. I really like seeing it in the big screen. I really like how they visualize the Eternals.
All the visuals in this movie are bar none fantastic. I love like you said, Brandon, the scope of these Celestials, of these behemoths, just like, because at first I'm thinking, like, when they're like the emergence, it's like, oh, it's just gonna be like something coming out of a volcano. It's like, oh no, that's like when you see the finger.
Oh, full-size Celestial is gonna burst out of our planet.
Yeah, but when you just see a little finger, I'm like, okay, that's probably like nothing. It's like, is that the back? And then it's like, oh shit. Like,
and what's cool is they don't give. They can't show you the full scale of it, so like the camera's almost kind of confusing you with it because it can't quite process the scale of it, much in the same way that we couldn't really fathom something of that scale of the Celestial scale. I think that's all really well visualized and really cool in the movie.
I just imagine what the Avengers were doing at like what Avengers are at Avengers Tower right now, and they just turn on the news. Is like, why is there a face?
Avengers Tower was sold.
Oh, Avengers Mansion.
Nope, Avengers Compound. Nope, that was destroyed. There is no anything.
They have a hotel somewhere.
Wherever the Avengers
Falcon's
are.
apartment.
Yeah.
Theoretically, Ben, like this is something that hasn't been addressed. Like as far as we know, there are currently no Avengers.
Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah,
like they are Avengers, but they have no gathering place or anything like that. The closest we would have seen to something like that would have been with Falcon and Winter Soldier, and they clearly aren't doing that.
True. But yeah, I just want to see what the reaction was. Where it's like, why is there a face out of the ocean?
And ballsy that they kept it there.
Yeah, and that's for the next 10 years or whatever. Like, there's just gonna be a giant monster or whatever. I really like the new lore that they did. Like, I don't mind because, like, again, like I'm not an Eternals fan, like super fan or whatever. So like changing their origin, I think works. I think making them like synthetic people is fine or whatever. I really like the idea.
I like that change.
They're basically Winter Soldiers. So every time they birth a new Celestial, they get like rewritten to go do it again on another planet. I really like the idea. This is the plot of Doom Eternal, by the way, that humans are basically just used to birth new Celestials. So it's like a huge like circle of life where you kill billions of people to birth billions and billions of more people, and that's really heavy and cosmic. And like Icarus' struggle of like, yo, we're gonna stop life from happening in the universe. Like I think that is a good struggle, and that is the last act of the movie is my favorite part of the movie for me. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I think most of the actors are giving like 10 out of 10 performances with the material. Honestly, like I think Richard Madden. I think the scene where Richard Madden comes in as Icarus and Cersei says he killed Ajax, and he's crying as he confesses it to them. And he stands up for that, and like they feel betrayed as a family. And I'm like, this is the thing is like what really worked for me as Eternals is like by the end of the movie, I do believe that they are like essentially a family that's lived all this time, and I do believe that they've had these deep connections to each other. In a way, there is a chemistry running through this group of actors that I have not felt in other MCU films. With like the Avengers and things like that. Like there is a compassion between them that I believe when I'm watching them.
There is a visual I want to point out specifically, which is Arashem's not even his full face, just two eyes are engulfing the screen, and Ajax is such a tiny speck you can barely see her. Love that.
I think Chloe Zhao's visual language throughout the film is top notch, and some of the best stuff we've seen in the MCU. Some of my favorite visual shots I've seen in the MCU are in this film. And it really does come back to like there's just this weird juxtaposition of really wanting it to be a small character focused story but it's also about characters involved in the gigantic scope of the universe.
Yeah. It's
and trying to ride both of those concepts and please everybody.
Yeah.
And I think that's really challenging. I liked a lot of the flashback stuff. I think most of it worked. But it really, really pisses me off that Circe tells Dane explicitly that they've been on Earth for 7,000 years and she was with Icarus for 5,000 years, and we literally get a timestamp of when they got together, and it was 2,500 years ago. And I'm like, come on, man, like.
On and off.
Check your writing, man. No, because that's when he first admits feelings is 2,500 years before, and she's like, "Yeah, we were together for 5,000 years," and I'm like, "No, you weren't."
She's bad. She's bad with math.
Who can do math?
Yeah.
She knows artifacts, not.
I liked. I did like the scene with Druig at his camp. Like, I'm a big fan of like cult stuff. And like the eyes are like the whole family or the whole like cult of people with the shotguns, I think is really effective. And like there's a scene where like there's like 10 of them and they're shooting a deviant, and someone's yelling at Drew like stop it, but there's in unison. That's like haunting. It's really, really cool.
It's
and I'm
really
like,
cool.
Oh, there's this really, like, again, this should not have been a Disney Plus show, but the way it's structured, it's like every 30 minutes, like we meet a new character basically, and it takes so long to get to the final. To get to the whole team together. And I think that is what I'm rubbing against the most. It's like, it would take so much time to get to like the spot that I wanted it to be, that like by the time we get there, it's just, I'm kind of already checked out, unfortunately.
You know how long it took us to meet each Guardian?
It just, well, it's not the same. It's just not the same.
I think waiting 2 hours to meet like your last character is a mistake. I think. That's as good as he is, like he's barely in the movie.
I do have an issue. So we've talked a lot about the character issue that a lot of us have, but like the idea that we meet the characters so late as they're introduced to the flashback, and then they're introduced in the present day, or I think that's how the formula went. But like, it could work. But I just don't think by the time we meet the next character, I really care about the character that I just met. And because I spent so much time with them. So then there's not a lot of more room for each character. I don't know. I don't know if I'm explaining it right, but like
I get you, yeah.
I do have I honestly, I talked about it, like, I don't really care if I see these characters again, honestly.
It would be like, honestly, the only character that I really would like to see is dead. So unless they actually do the Eternals comics and bring Gilgamesh back to life, like,
I mean, they could.
They could. Him being one of the only non American people, and like I could totally see him just not coming back, like for like Hollywood reasons, like that makes sense.
It's a big bummer because he was awesome.
And like the stuff with him and Thena, like I do, like again,
so
I don't.
Good.
Oh, I did like that stuff. Yeah,
I don't connect with it, but I really like it because like it's not there enough for me to be like to have a really emotional connection. There's one line of "I've been guarding her for 1,000 years." I'm like, that's not enough for me. I'm sorry, it's just not enough. I want it to be. I love Sparks. You know how much I love that guy from Train to Busan.
No, I do.
Yeah, I just it all works. All the acting is good. It just I needed more of it from everyone for it to work.
Yeah. I can't rebuttal that. Like, everyone's experience is their experience. I felt like there was a lot of, again, like I thought this was a strong cast, like putting a lot in between the lines, emotionally for the characters. And I thought that was selling it more than like an extra lines about their relationships with each other would have.
Yeah. They're doing the work. Yeah.
Which isn't to say like that some certain characters couldn't have been more developed. I do think like Thena got less attention than I expected, but I didn't mind. I thought Angelina Jolie was probably pretty well cast because I think she's able to do a lot with being quiet. Yeah, I just I definitely got emotionally invested in certain characters' relationships by how they were behaving with each other. I want to really shout out, because we haven't brought him up at all. Like, I love Harish Patel as Karun, the valet for King.
The valet?
Oh, yeah, he is cool.
Yeah. I love him. I love him both as comedic relief, but I also love him as a sincere, like, representation of humanity, appreciating the Eternals.
Thank you for everything you've done for humanity.
Yeah, and just like being honored to meet them and things like that. This movie vibed for me in a lot of ways because I didn't feel like it was most of the time. most of the time it didn't feel like it had that same kind of cheeky common MCU humor.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The humor felt more built in and organic most of the time. And I preferred it not feeling so steeped in MCU, to be honest. I liked it feeling like it was a bit removed, almost like a lot of the times when I was watching it, I was looking at it as like, if this were just a movie, not an MCU movie, just a movie, like, and this were going to be the only one, and which is again why I don't like the cliffhanger ending necessarily. And it was just trying to tell me a story about these characters. Like, I think they did a lot with the mileage that they could if this was like a one and done. And I respect that, and I think it, without the expectations, without the context of the broader things that we would bring to it, this wouldn't have been received the same. I think people would be digging into different things, and certainly the film would have been able to appease certain things differently. But I think that's much more the mentality I think that was brought to a lot of the characters, was to sell that as a single film story just by itself, outside of the larger context that it's forced to exist in.
I do agree. I do
when
appreciate that this film doesn't look like it. This is, it doesn't feel like an MCU movie.
Yeah, and for that alone, like it makes me kind of charmed by it. I did want to talk about this point because like I'm like so mixed on it, because it's the Twitter discourse around it was like misleading leading into the film, so it already set me in a weird place with it about Fastus being responsible for the atomic bomb.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's they
It's
made
n-
it
it's
sound
not
like
as
he
bad.
built it, and I'm like, no, it sounds like in the film it sounds like the context is that he helped advance humanity,
Yes.
and that led to the atomic bomb, and he regrets that.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a totally different thing than what they were trying to sell it on, of like a gay black man being singularly responsible for creating the atomic bomb. Like that's a
Yeah.
whole other kind of concept, and that would be gross, and that's not what I felt like they did. It's so weird to use that tactfully. Like, it's so hard, especially in American media, to like be able to do any kind of, it doesn't feel like it's able to be paid the proper amount of time for what the weight of that is. This is another reason why I feel like Druig's emotional arc is so similar to Fastus's. It should have been one, because you could have made this thing really land.
Mhm.
But I do think that they made a very smart choice to have Fastus in Hiroshima. I think the whole bit wouldn't have worked if he were somewhere else. You
Just like
see the
watching on
explosion,
TV. Yeah.
and he were somewhere else, I think it would feel too removed. I think the only way that they're able to kind of get by on kind of playing around in the sand of that is by having him there. And
Yeah.
I think that made all the difference in the impact of that moment, for what it should be paying respect to.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
get that.
it was definitely much better seeing it. Yeah.
Yeah. I really like a lot of these characters. I don't know. I have to. I've had the urge to watch it again since I saw it, so that says something. And I've been thinking about it for a few days, trying to break it down and analyze it. So I don't know. I agree. I think the third act is really strong.
See, and this is the
because-
thing. Like, I've been negative on Marvel third acts recently. So like the fact that this is a different movie where my favorite part is the final act never happens. So like in that fact alone, I am happy this movie exists despite me not really liking it. I want Marvel to take more risk like this, because this doesn't feel like an MCU movie, despite its flaws. Like, at least they tried something. Yo, there's thrusting in this movie. I thought the sex scene was a joke. They're fucking in this movie, you guys. It's real. I'm like, you see Icarus thrust, and I'm like, holy shit, this is a kids movie. This is a Disney movie. I can't believe it.
And
We haven't seen a sex scene since Phase 1.
The MCU's always needed to be more horny, but I do appreciate that that felt more like intimacy more than anything.
Yes,
the way it was shot, and I really like that. It helped to sell their relationship for like what the film does going forward. I wanted to get back, like I barely touched on it, but when you brought up Ajax, like I kind of agree. Like, I'm a little bummed that Selma Hayek's not able to be more present, but I did kind of like this maternal energy that she had.
Yeah.
For the Eternals, and I thought she got that across quickly and briskly, and it worked. I also, my hope going forward, because we're going to get more Eternal stuff, is that we could still flash back.
Yeah.
And we could still flesh out even more from that time period about their relationships with each other. Even even as we are moving forward with the characters. Like I hope that they don't completely leave that on
I
the
mean,
table. 'Cause
there's
that's a lot of time being connected with each other.
there's not 7,000 years, which I'm glad they changed. There's literally like millions of years of Eternals stuff. So like
Yes.
with the stuff with the post credit scene, I would not be shocked if we get a lot more like pre humanity like cosmic Marvel stuff involving
Right.
characters we've already seen who might be dead, maybe.
Right.
So should I do the post credits, or do you have more?
I do have a little more. I really did like I had it and then it kind of slipped.
It happens.
I love Kingo's bit of being my great grandfather, my grandfather, my father, and me. I thought that was extremely good.
Yeah.
I really, I guess, I feel like this isn't. I don't know how to say this without sounding like I'm dissing you guys and your viewing experience, because I'm not. I think that this is just what happened to me, is that I kept like constantly grabbing onto the small things, whether it was looks between the actors or Angelina Jolie petting an iguana.
I noticed that.
Or yeah, like I thought there was just enough heart amongst these. I just bought them. I bought their relationships to each other most of the time, and I thought that there was good nuggets, like Kingo saying that the whole reason he got into films was because of Sprite telling stories and things like that. I feel like there was just there was a way to weaponize like the best version of this movie, and I do think the path to it is like cutting down the deviant plot line and focusing on the family falling apart because of the fact that Icarus was going against them, and stripping down maybe one Eternal to really let you focus on the ones that are left. I think Richard Madden did a pretty good job with selling Icarus's betrayal too, because Megan caught on to it immediately when
So
they
did
got
I.
Ajax's body.
Yeah.
And I saw it too. I saw that it was there. Like, you're like, oh, he knows shit.
Yeah.
And I thought that was good. Like, I thought it was good that they leave that idea. And I thought it was a bold choice to play Icarus the way they did. And I think all the third act stuff about like just trying to slow him down, not necessarily kill him, they're just trying to slow him.
Yeah.
Worked really well. I love the visualization of everybody's abilities. I think they all look great.
I agree.
Ryan brought up the third act. I do also really enjoy this third act. It feels utterly unique from certainly recent MCU.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the end of God of War, when you have the giant titans battling up front when you're fighting Baldur downstairs. This is exactly the opposite of the Shang-Chi. I did not like the end of Shang-Chi because there was a big battle when it should have been the personal battle. This is the battle Sean, thank you. This was a small scale personal battle between friends while a giant celestial was in the background. This is exactly the type of third act shit that I want, where it feels big but it is small. This is what I'm talking about, baby.
Yeah.
I think this one is really well executed. It doesn't kind of feel like we've been there, done that. There's a lot of really cool ideas at play, and it does feel emotional because it is play on the emotion of the film to drive the action rather than just being like, well, we have an action scene here.
Fastos gets to like just do. He has like Shuri gloves for a second, and he's just making cannons and shit. Like, cool, man. It's very cool.
Should we talk about the post-credit scenes?
Hell yeah! I listened to a lot of Harry Styles today for some reason.
Harry Styles, I guess. I honestly didn't recognize him. I don't know what he looks like.
I recognize that handsome man anyway.
I was more trying to place Pip's voice, the imp, and then like he shows up like, who the heck is this guy?
I was more excited to see Pip than Eros.
I knew Patton Oswalt was in the movie because he tweeted, "Wow, I guess I'm at the premiere of this movie for some reason."
Right.
So I'm like, "Well, is he playing his character from S.H.I.E.L.D.? What the hell?"
Yeah. I was wondering it during the movie too. Like, there was a part of me in the back of my head that was going, okay, so Patton Oswalt's showing up somewhere, right?
Is he a deviant?
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
I gotta say, considering they killed his brother, it's really fascinating they're bringing in Star Fox Eros of Titan now.
Yes.
It's really fascinating because also that's a character that is kind of gross and rapey in the 70s and 80s. His whole power is he controls the pleasures and emotions of people. That's his superpower. They've made it made it less creepy in modern era, but like he's like the Purple Man in a kind of way. The fact that they casted Harry Styles, who is one of the most handsome and charming people on the planet, works. Really works. If they want to make a charming superhero who wins people over through his powers, then like they got the perfect guy. Just it's so weird. It's really weird that Star Fox is the guy that chose to be their next like Avenger guy. It's really weird.
I was interested. I'm confused. Like I know that Star Fox Eros is Thanos' brother in the comics, but
He's
like
eternal.
this completely changes what we knew in Infinity War.
So, yes and no. So Thanos is an eternal with a deviant gene. So that's the direction they're probably going to go in the movie. He is an eternal, but he's got the ugly look.
Then what was Titan?
That's the problem. like Titan. I don't know. Who knows?
Right.
Maybe
See, it's not just the Thanos connection. It's the okay. So what's Titan? How'd that happen?
My theater got loud. Did they say in the movie that Star Fox is an Eternal?
Yes.
Okay, they do.
Yeah, he says, "Hello, my fellow Eternals."
Yes.
Okay,
and they also
did not
say,
did not hear that line.
No, yeah. They go, "Oh my God, that's Thanos' brother," and he's like, "Hello, fellow Eternals."
So he says Pip introduces him as brother of Thanos, and then
Prince of Titan.
McCurry signs Thanos' brother.
Mm-hmm.
My assumption is just that the way they'll do it is that Star Fox is an Eternal who was on Titan, and the Celestial breaking out didn't break the planet, but it did cause the ruin that Thanos was living in. And Thanos was just like an adopted brother to him, not a born brother.
Oh yes, I did see this theory.
He says Prince of Titan also.
Yeah.
That's the word that got me. I was like,
I saw this awesome theory, and it's a thing where it makes Thanos even more right, even though he's a villain, he wasn't right, but like Thanos is right. Thanos was doing what he was doing to half the population of the universe to stop the celestial process from happening. Right. Because he destroys planets to make celestials.
That has a very Palpatine knew the Uzon Vong were coming. Vibe.
Not as bad though. Because like at least Thanos is like kind of doing a good thing in a way, in a way.
So was Palpatine kind of doing a good thing in a way.
Come on.
I mean, well, this has been the whole thing. Is like everybody said, like Thanos' argument when he has the Infinity Stones is bullshit. Like you could have just doubled the resources, you could have done all this stuff. Why did he specifically do the? Well, this could theoretically be an answer. Is that he knew Celestials fed off the high population of planets, in theory.
Yeah.
That context is there, and if they went that route, I wouldn't necessarily be mad about it. As far as like Prince of Titan, Brandon, like you could definitely pull like he's not necessarily like. That doesn't necessarily mean like title of royal prince. It could be Prince of Titan in the same way that like John Carter is a Prince of Earth. You're just the guy who's really important who's still around from that planet somewhere else.
I am not knocking it. It was just the time in the movie where it was the first time in the movie I was like, oh, what?
But also like think about it like Vegeta is like the prince of the planet, but the planet's like destroyed, right? He's still the prince of the planet. Even though Titan's gone, he's still the prince of the planet. He's 1,000,000 years old.
I just have a lot of questions, and it wasn't answered in this movie.
No. So he has a orb like Ajax, so he is calling a celestial for whatever's next, which is really cool. So we're gonna get more celestials. Pip's in a movie. Unbelievable. He's the guy you meet in Infinity Gauntlet at the beginning. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Thanos is dead. What a bummer.
Pip? No, that's not him in Gamma Flight. Who's the guy in Gamma Flight?
That's
the short
Puck.
guy.
That's Puck.
Puck.
Yeah.
You can see my confusion.
Very different, yes.
Mag says 3 Marvel roles, this guy. I'm assuming Patton Oswalt. Who's the third?
He's referring to Patton Oswalt.
MODOK,
Shield,
and now this.
MODOK. Yep. I forgot MODOK.
Yeah.
All right. And then the final post-credit scene introduces Blade.
I'm not mad at it. Like, I'm really not. But why?
I guess this is
because
why...
he has a sword.
I guess this is why... so I read an article. I guess Chloe Zhao had cast Mahershala Ali as Blade for this, and that's why he was announced so early, even though he doesn't have a movie attached to him.
That's so bizarre because you don't even see his face.
Yeah, right.
You
We were
just
walking
hear him
out of before I read about it. Like we were walking out of the theater, and I was like, I think that might have been Blade. And then
Yeah.
Xander, friend of the podcast, Xander was with us, and he's like, I don't know, man. Kind of sounded like it could have been Jeffrey Wright. And I was like, good call. That would make more sense.
It would make more sense, actually. Yes, but I doubt it.
No, it is Mahershala Ali.
yeah,
We know.
she confirmed.
We know.
That's right.
We know
Yeah.
for sure it is him. It is Blade. I don't hate it either. I'm just like, why?
Why?
For audiences that aren't going to go look it up, why
So
didn't
for
you
those
show
of
his
you,
face?
who don't know, Dane Whitman, the Black Knight, is a mythology character, not a horror character. He deals with King Arthur and Excalibur and otherworld magic.
And then also
Blade-
name drop the Ebony Blade before we see it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and then Blade fights vampires. They are separate universes in the Marvel universe. They are not connected whatsoever. I don't know if they've ever been in a comic together. I'm sure they have. That comics have existed for a
That
long
new
time.
Midnight Suns comic is gonna have him.
My favorite Midnight Sun, Black Knight. I'm not mad. Like, I love Mahershala Ali showing up, but like, Blade's not someone who should be in an Eternals movie. That's really
Well,
weird.
yeah. Blade has kind of. So I joke that it could be Wong. Like Wong shows up at the end because he's
God.
shown up a lot in the
Yeah.
MCU so far.
It would make more sense, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, like hey, welcome to whatever I'm doing. I'm doing Avengers. Wong
Magic Avengers.
Avengers by way of Wong.
Yeah.
But it's Blade kind of in a similar role as Wong and Nick Fury before.
The magic side of it, though.
Doing like the magic side. Like he's like, hey, I'm setting up the Midnight Suns. You ready? And then we'll see him in Moon Knight. Hey, I'm setting up the Midnight Suns. You ready?
It's you don't even get like Ghost Rider or Morbius or Werewolf by Night first. You get the Black Knight who's not even on the team.
Yeah.
There's business decisions, there's reasons for doing this. But Blade's coming sooner than we think. So that's kind of cool.
The way they visualized the blade moving towards his fingers was really cool.
That was really cool.
Yeah, the ebony blade has a curse where the longer you wield it, the more mad it makes you and it drives you crazy. So we've watched Game of Thrones. We've seen that guy go a little crazy. So like I'm excited to see him do that again. We're all black again.
Shall we rate it then?
Okay.
All right, Ben.
Probably give it like 6.
Ryan.
I feel bad because like I really do want to like this movie more, but it just didn't fully work for me. It is the lowest rated Marvel movie since maybe ever. I would give it a 6.5. Yeah, it's definitely my weakest Marvel. It's definitely it's up to Spider-Man this year now. Oh man. Oh man.
Phase 4 is a really
Oh,
bumpy road so far.
Kind of bumpy, yeah.
It's like you got Black Widow.
No, we had Shang-Chi.
I thought
bumpy, it's we get the good and the bad.
I liked 2/3 of that movie.
Sparks.
It's definitely a 7.5, maybe even an 8.
I think I'm with Ryan. That's a 6.5 for me. Maybe as it goes on, I'll look for more favorably on it. We'll see.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
I gelled with it. It jammed with me. I am on a smaller island than most.
And
So
honestly, Sparks, really, like, I would feel more bad if I didn't know so many people who agreed with me.
Right.
So like I would feel more bad. Like
sure.
I
feel weird because I'm like I don't know, man. I guess my brain broke when I saw it.
No, man. You got the Kingo juice in you.
Gross. The beard. Can you get this beard keg away from me? The spit keg away from me.
Yeah. Yummy.
Shall we get into our book club?
Eternalize.